Now, you're asking me about passions, right? That's probably one of the hardest questions you're going to ask someone, any adult, as they move on in life.
Okay, so today I'm here interviewing Rishi for our Innovator series just to give him a chance to talk about himself and all of the things that he's doing. So to start off, just tell us about yourself. What is your passion?
All right, so basically, a little bit about myself first. I was born in Panama. I just turned 27 today, uh, and my parents are from India. They migrated from India to Panama about 40 years ago. So I'm basically a first generation Panamanian Indian. So I come from I have the good fortune of coming from a rich cultural background. I went to an international school in Panama studying BU, so I met people from all over the world. Now, you're asking me about passions, right? That's probably one of the hardest questions you're going to ask someone, any adult, as they move on in life. It's just a question that keeps me up at night. What drives me, right? I have multiple interests. I love finance, economics, history. I'm really interested in health and fitness, and I am driven by this sense of wanting to spread knowledge to others. That's why I love what you guys are doing here at We Equal School, facilitating the spread of knowledge. But are they passions? I'm not sure because that question is very difficult to answer. Um, I'm still not entirely sure what my passion is. Maybe down the line I'll figure it out, but I do have interests, things that really do drive me and make me feel happy. One thing, though, that I have discovered, one thing that you will discover as you grow older is one thing that can give you passion in itself is an appreciation for the present moment, meaning just the sheer idea that you're alive and breathing and taking breaths of air. That's why one thing that I do advocate a lot for is meditation. And I think your dad mentioned this earlier. He really wants kids at We Equal School to learn meditation. It's fantastic. Studies have shown, they've put Buddhist monks in MRI scans, and it has tangible benefits. Like the brain patterns do change when you've been meditating for years. So meditation is definitely something that I've developed a very powerful interest for. Potentially a passion, but we'll see. Not sure yet. But yeah, I do advocate meditation, learn how to breathe, and then you'll start really admiring the world for what it is. So yeah, when it comes to passion, that's the kind of answer I'd give.
Yeah. That's one of the things is just appreciating the moment, and then you're able to really kind of make the most of the time that you have. And then you it's one of the things that Steve Jobs was talking about in a college graduation speech, is just to it's kind of like reminding yourself of your mortality, just so then you have appreciation for every moment, and then it just becomes to make it more vivid. And so yeah.
Lovely. Yeah, I love that speech. I think he also mentioned about how you're just supposed to do things in a moment, and then when you move forward and look back at things, then you'll see how everything you've done, you're just connecting the dots, basically, right? So he took a calligraphy lesson, and because of that calligraphy lesson, it led him to a point where he created beautiful interfaces for his Mac processors. So yeah, definitely live in the moment. Don't worry about the future too much. Just do, and you'll get to where you need to be. Just have faith in yourself. I like that.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's also discovering your passions and not limiting yourself to certain areas, because one, everything is interconnected. So just saying
Definitely.
like, well, oh, I'm only interested in this space, then you're limiting yourself to that space, but then you're also not seeing how other all of these other things are interconnected with it. So yeah, that's also that's really cool. Um, what is your story?
Okay. So, like I mentioned earlier on, I do come from an international background. I've gotten to meet tons of people. I'd say I've been gifted with a very global perspective. I can understand how people think from different cultures, West and the East, and I'm very happy with that. I'm sure you can relate too. Um, I went to an international high school, then I went to BU. I did study finance there, and I am starting investing. I've been doing it for a couple months now. I've picked up a lot of it thanks to my finance background. Uh, I work in my family business, which is electronic retail. We have a couple stores in the city, and I ended up succeeding in the sense that I brought an online marketing platform to the business, and it really generated a ton of value. I'll get more into that later, but I'd also like to bring up that currently I was appointed as the COO of Wequal Capital, which is our collaborative hedge fund. Basically, it's a collaborative hedge fund and an advisory panel for people who are seeking financial advice in the United States. So with Wequal Capital, it's a very excellent concept. It's basically investors gathering in and just sharing knowledge, like pooling in all their ideas, challenging each other, trying to arrive at a conclusion together on what a good investing thesis is. So if anyone in Wequal is interested, you can just contact me on Slack. I'm in the Wequal Slack group. So just a little plug in there. Anyway, I'll get to my story. So with the online marketplace, I'd say that it was a big success. It was definitely like a huge turning point for me. Brought me a lot of confidence and showed me that I am capable of generating a ton of value if I put my mind into it. And it was an initiative I took on my own. Like one of the challenges of working with a family business is the culture. There's no corporate culture of like setting up a digital infrastructure for your inventory or managing customers through an online platform or all that. It's a simple, I would say, mom and pop store that did extremely well. It pushed sales. The only thing is that we didn't have the personnel to take it to the next level, create an online presence. So that's where I came in. I pushed and pushed. Originally, most people didn't think it was worth it to set up a website or create a social media platform or a page because the truth is, it wasn't something too traditionally accepted, especially in Panama, where people go for more traditional means of advertising and broadcasting, like the radio, TV, newspaper. But I decided to push for it either way. You know, lots of people weren't too keen on the idea at the start. I mean, at the beginning itself, like I wasn't too sure if I would yield results because the pages I set up were still very small. I didn't have too many followers, and it was really hard to measure the benefits that the website brought because we didn't have any metrics to like figure out, okay, how many clients are being pulled in because of our online presence. So those were the challenges. But interestingly enough, I think, first of all, the 2020 pandemic was a disaster. Like it has affected the world in negative ways, but at the same time, it interestingly enough brought a ton of opportunity to many, opened up many avenues for how we work. And you can apply that to my online platform as well. Um, because of the pandemics, sorry, Panama, where I'm from, ended up in a total lockdown. The entire country was locked in. It was one of the most draconian and strict lockdowns ever. Um, you literally could not step out of your house. You'd get arrested. So we had to stay at home all week for like a solid 4 or 5 months. So as a result, all businesses were shut down. The only businesses that were able to operate were businesses that were strictly offering delivery services and that had a presence online. So where I fit in is, luckily enough, I pushed through. I had my website. So my dad went for it and said, "All right, look, we're going to set up a rudimentary payment structure with bank transfers, but we're going to start launching this website now. Get a WhatsApp number, plug it into your social media, and just start attending clients." He told me that. and it was crazy. The day of like a couple weeks after lockdown, when we got the feeling that yeah we were going to be stuck here for a while, I set up a WhatsApp number, plugged it in on our social media, and within the first 10 minutes we got like 250 messages just pouring in like crazy. Like it
Wow.
was we didn't I didn't expect that level of like exposure. Like it was just me, my brother, and my two parents basically setting up shop for the three stores. I pulled in, tend to have tons of revenue, but we became the storefront at the end of the day. Like we set up a home office and we just kept attending people, asking for stuff on WhatsApp, and it was very successful. Thanks to the website, we were able to actually stay operational throughout the pandemic. We didn't like suffer through any losses. We made money, and it was a very satisfying success. So that is my story. It was definitely worth it. Although the first year and a half, it didn't feel like it was worth it. The results paid off, just like Steve Jobs said. Like, don't worry about how it'll pan out. The dots will connect. And it's true. It totally did. Looking back at it now, I'm really happy I pushed through, went through that struggle, and set up that online presence. We have over 1.5 million visitors since the website launched. We've
Wow.
generated like a massive amount of revenue from it. And we do have about 21,000 followers on Instagram, but they're very solid followers that constantly engage in all our posts. So it's a powerful marketing avenue.
Yeah, that's amazing. One question I have is you were saying like in Panama they're used to doing things very traditionally, and so what made you want to push forward and create an online presence and set up a website, and like take that first step forward in providing that for your family business, even if it's not traditionally what people normally do.
The truth is, like, online marketing is a thing in Panama, but it's something that bigger corporations do. They put in a huge budget, and it's just something that people imagine like bigger companies doing, not like a small business. So really, like, it was tradition. It is acceptable, like in Panama, to set up an online presence. It is kind of a norm, but I guess the main challenge was getting everyone within the company who had more of a traditional mindset to get on board. So yeah, I was seeing the results from outside in Panama. I did have exposure to this too in BU, taking up some marketing courses and seeing the benefits of online marketing and seeing how this is a platform. I've been exposed to people like Gary Vaynerchuk, who really pushed for Facebook. He was one of the first people to push for Facebook ads. He said, "This is a gold mine. Jump in on it now before all the corporations jump in and drive up the cost of advertising." So like that is basically some influence I've had that got me to want to push for that. And
Mm,
I did see it as a benefit.
yeah. And so one other thing you mentioned was that you kind of had a lot of international, just a lot of different cultures. How do you think that has helped you?
Mm, I think being exposed to many different cultures at an early age has helped me become more of an open person. Like, instead of just not being happy with what someone is saying because their opinion differs to me or they come from a different perspective, I get more intrigued instead. I just like to know instead why, like how, like what made you come to that conclusion instead of just completely dismissing them. Because I am exposed to different people, like different ways of thinking. There definitely isn't one way of thinking at all, and it's pretty astounding how different the way people think, the differences we see in the way people think across the globe. So being exposed to that has helped me just have more of an open mindset to dealing with people who are different to me. So that has helped.
Yeah, that's one thing we're also trying to incorporate in We Cool School is like a lot of our web app team are from Kenya, Nigeria, and then we have families from Australia joining. And then it's just like because sometimes when you're just
That's
growing
great.
up, especially in COVID, when you're not seeing a lot of people, then you're not even aware that there are different ways of thinking, and then just being very rigid and then and how you think, and then that's one thing that's yeah, I think it's just being open minded. Yeah. Um, what makes you such a successful entrepreneur?
I'm still a work in progress for sure. Like I'm young. I definitely want to improve and take it to the next level, but I think some traits that just help me become more successful. Like one particularly that my father taught me was to just be a better listener. Like it goes a long way, especially when you're conversing with someone. Instead of focusing on like, okay, what can I say to sound smart in this conversation? You're better off just like um, listening to everything that person is saying. Try to get your brain into that person's brain, and naturally you'll just start talking and saying and like engaging in a fluid conversation, and you'll end up being more productive. Apart from that, one thing that's very important too is to not when you're launching a product or providing a service, don't overthink it. Just put the, I think what you guys like to call the minimum viable product, right? Put out your minimal viable product and just accept the feedback, positive or negative. There's no harm in feedback. Like nowadays, attention is a currency. Like getting people's attention is valuable. And if they're giving you feedback, that's extreme value, whether the feedback is good or bad. So be open to feedback and put your product out there and just start with it. Don't try to guess whether people are like it. It's gonna make your head blow up. Just try to get the feedback directly from people. And yeah, that's probably a few things I can think of that's helped me out.
Yeah, that's also is a lot of if you just try to just by yourself trying to make everything perfect and then you finally release it after like years of working on it and then people don't like it and it's like then what was that all those years for and
Yeah.
it's just and then just putting it out there when you only spent a week just throwing something together and then you can actually see if the underlying premise of just conceptually what your idea was for the
Mhm.
product if people like that then you can start building on it
Yeah,
and that's also where you find your core users of people who like the very bad version of whatever you of whatever you made. Then you want to make those people even more happy.
for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. That's customer loyalty right there. If they're sticking
Mm,
with you from the beginning, means they really like your stuff.
yeah. Do you see yourself as an innovator, and if so, why?
So my solution to my business was very simple. It was simply just exposing the store's brand, products, offers on social media and having and leveraging that to move it to website traffic. To be honest, it's nothing highly innovative. Like it's been done for like I'd say almost a decade now. But I would consider myself an innovator in the sense that within my store's bubble, like despite people not being on board, like not I'm not saying on board, but not being like too like excited or enthusiastic about um, having an online presence, I still pushed for it. Like I felt like I was basically the only one pushing for it. Lots of people weren't too keen. They were telling me, "Oh, what are you doing? Just forget Instagram. Start publishing newspaper ads instead. We'll get more audience that way. That's more established. What are you going to do with just a couple hundred followers?" So despite that, I still went for it. I still believed in the new idea. I wanted to change everyone's mind instead of just going with the tide, going with the flow and just listening to what everyone, the majority had to say. So in that sense, I am an innovator in that small space.
Hmm. That's, yeah, I think that's one thing is a lot of people they have ideas, but then the people who really succeed are like 9 out of 10 startups fail, but mostly the reason why is because they gave up on their vision and they thought, even just they were working on something and maybe they weren't seeing results immediately and they thought maybe this isn't the best idea. What do you think motivated you to keep pushing for for creating an online presence?
To be honest, I'm really proud of the family business, like how far it's come, like since its inception. My dad came from India. He immigrated, took a risk, and he started off with one store, but then he set it up in such a way that was running like clockwork, excellent. Everybody knew their roles. Like it was, it's all, I would say it's almost running by itself. Like just the meticulous nature in which he um, handled every detail, like organized these group of people to set up this retail operation. It was kind of inspirational, you know. It made me think, man, this is kind of like a craft, you know, building a business from scratch, like the way he set it up and how nice it is. I'd like to take it to the next level and push it back. So it was a very personal reason. Just seeing, just building on that legacy was really what motivated me.
Yeah. What are the skills you wish you learned when you were young?
That one was actually the easiest one for me. The easiest question. Two skills. What you guys are doing at We Equal School, awesome. Coding. That's definitely something that everyone needs to know. Like, you guys are doing it at a young age. So, like, the way I see coding is that I started coding HTML, CSS, and JavaScript last year, and I picked up a good amount of it. I got to a point where I was learning some specialized platforms like React.js, and I did do pretty decent with it, but I'm nowhere near like a professional programmer still. And seeing seeing you guys doing it at such a young age is very inspirational because I know for a fact if you keep up with it, you're gonna be pros in a couple of years easily. You know, so it's kind of like an athlete, right? I like a boxer, for example. Like I can't become a boxer now as a 27-year-old. You have to start that stuff when you're maybe like 15 or 14 young so you can develop into it. I see that with coding too. If you really want to like become the best programmer and play in the big leagues, you've got to start this early, like at 14, 15 when your mind is fresh and young and you can like really mold yourself into the ideal programmer. I can become a good programmer now, but I definitely don't have as much potential as you guys starting it off at a very young age. So that's definitely one thing I would have liked to do when I was younger. Learn how to code, maybe learn Python or Flutter. And apart from that, the second thing would be martial arts. Like that is one thing everybody should learn. I did Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for a year, and I'd say that that was one of the disciplines that has shaped me to what I am today, brought me my level of confidence and comfort with myself to put myself out there. I mean, if you ever feel like you're a nervous person and you're scared half the time, just start practicing martial arts or training BJJ. Um, it gets you out of your head. When you're grappling someone, you're not thinking anymore like, oh, did I sound dumb here? No, you're just scared. You're like trying to fight for your life, you know, trying to protect yourself from getting choked. So martial arts is definitely something I would recommend uh, anyone to do at it starting at a young age. I would have definitely liked to start that at a younger age so I could develop an even stronger foundation. But I still think martial arts is something that anyone can start, just like with coding. But if you want the best results, start at a young age.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't, yeah, I mean, Isla and I, we've been doing Taekwondo for a while, but it's not really necessarily more focused on hands-on, like actual combat. like you do like forms and combinations, but
Mhm.
it's not necessarily very focused on self defense. But yeah, that's really interesting. One
I
thing.
would highly recommend Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu then. It's
Mhm.
you do spar a lot, but it's not dangerous because it's just grappling. So
Mm,
like there's not too much pain involved. It's just and it conditions you for stressful environments. So I would highly recommend it. It
mm.
is fun too.
That's also one thing you said about like coding is um one thing Jordan Peterson talks about is like when you're young, you have a bunch of you're basically just potential because you haven't had time to really master or start really getting good at skills. And so, and then with that potential, like one thing we really want to try to do with Weekly School is like learn from people like you and just kind of like the leading minds on what should you do with that potential because you can really that's what you're saying is like mold yourself into the ideal programmer. That's something you can do when you haven't had time to create kind of like a rigid self image of yourself and how you perceive yourself or just and so then you're really able to mold yourself into those things and then just like what are the skills that you should start learning when you're really young because it's just going to be a lot easier if you've had that just if you've just originally started when you're really young so that's yeah, that's really. I mean, it's like when you're old, you can still become a good programmer, but
Yeah,
it's just easier to learn when you're young. It takes.
you get better.
Hmm.
You're
Yeah,
more open to start younger.
yeah. Um, what is some advice you would like to give to students and members at Weekly School wanting to start their own business?
Well, I did say it earlier on. Like I'm a huge proponent on just giving your minimum viable product. Don't try to make it perfect. Like get your feedback, be open, and yeah, listening. Like instead of just trying to come up with something to say all the time, just listen to what the other person is saying. And yeah, just have fun with it too. Like at the end of the day, like life's too short to do something like you're not enjoying. Like find something you enjoy doing.
Yeah,
Why are we doing anything anyway? It's just to spend time in life and make the most out of it. Learn, grow, and give yourself a good time. It's a ride.
yeah, yeah. I definitely I agree with that. It's just like finding something that you're interested in, but because that's how you're gonna outwork everyone. Is if you really enjoy what you're doing and it's not work to you, and you're just building. You're just, I mean, and then you're just gonna do it
Mhm.
day and night, however long you need to, because you're having fun. You're doing what you like to do.
Exactly.
Um, yeah.
And I guess I'd also say like pace yourself. Rome wasn't built in a day. Don't expect to get all your results in such little time. Like treat it as a process. You will get there if you just put in your work and be consistent every day. Don't burn yourself out.
Mhm.
Like care for yourself as well and focus consistently on your goal.
Yeah, I like that because it's just you can get really wrapped up
Hmm.
in trying to make things perfect, but then you're gonna lose sight of the goal. That's one thing is from Peaceful Warrior is the journey is what brings us happiness, not the destination. And then if you get so focused on the destination, then you're gonna
Exactly.
fail because you're not like enjoying the process and seeing that it doesn't have to happen a week from now. It's I think like October of last year we were celebrating how we finished the web app and we were like yay and we just launched it 2 days ago. When we were like, this is actually when we came to a really, a solid, it's not finished, but it's usable
Yeah,
and so it's just seeing that it's a process and you just have to work with it.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing, meditate.
Yeah.
I hope one day that it becomes as common as just brushing your teeth. Like everyone's just meditating in their night routine, morning routine. It's good for you.
Yeah. How do you go about meditation? Because I know there's a lot of different ways people do it. There's like different types of meditation with like gratitude. Um,
Yeah, I you can go for guided meditations on YouTube. Just go on YouTube and start slowly. You know, if you feel like you can't sit still for 20, 30 minutes. I don't even like sitting still for 20, 30 minutes. I do 10 minutes. But if you feel like you need a little less time, you can start off with 5 minutes and put on a guided meditation and listen to instructions. Main thing though is to sit upright, cross-legged, and just focus on your breath. And don't be too disheartened if you find yourself stuck in your thoughts. The point is that you do have thoughts. You just gotta be a passive observer to your thoughts. And then as the thoughts come in, realize that they're just thoughts. You observe the thoughts and then they just eventually fade away. That's how it tends to work with meditation. Then you start realizing that reality isn't really in your mind all the time. A lot of it is outside your brain too. So yeah,
yeah.
I tend to like just doing it for 10 minutes. I don't do it guided anymore. I just set an alarm for 10 minutes and then I just sit down and just focus on my breath.
Hmm. Yeah, and also with that, it's also a process where you're not gonna just immediately be able to focus
Mhm.
on your breath for 10 minutes and solely not have any thoughts at all. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely something that I've. It's also just sometimes it's personal preference of when when I listen to guided meditation, I tend to have more thoughts because I don't know,
Mhm.
it's just like maybe the person's voice is weird or something, or there's some I like something in the audio, and then I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, oh no, I'm supposed to be meditating. But um, what is a belief or point of view you hold that is not shared by most other people? This is a tough one.
Yeah, I have to give it some thought. This might be my answer, but I'm not sure. I mean, my answers change as the years go by. I'm relatively young to most people too. I mean, I'm 27. Like a lot of people look at 27-year-olds and say, okay, you're under 35, so you're still kind of a baby, so you're learning. So I'm young, but what I'd say is for now, I think like a lot of people try to play hard to get. And I'm not a fan of that personally. I mean, sometimes that psychology works. Like you play hard to get, and people, you know, are more interested in you because you're making yourself more scarce. But the truth is, me personally, I like to just be eager for things and go for stuff and build my own value deep inside so that I don't feel the need to play hard to get. I just go for what I want and that's it. So yeah, that's one way which like a lot of people want to portray themselves as scarce. And I personally don't think that's necessary. Like focus on building yourself as a person and then when you want something, go for it. Like don't don't deprive yourself of something because you don't want to seem too eager, you're afraid of getting rejected. Just go for it. Like life is too short to not go for what you want.
Hmm. Yeah, it's also with it's just not feeling as though you have to portray yourself in a certain way or kind of calculate how you want people to perceive you because that's just exhausting, then you're not allowing yourself to
Totally.
to just be yourself, and if people don't have a problem with that, then
It's a
that's
very
fine.
hard thing. It's a
Yeah.
very hard thing to keep in mind and to do because
Yeah.
like putting yourself out there is one of the hardest things to do. Social pressure is ingrained in us in our biology for
Yeah.
since we were cavemen. It's a hard thing to fight, but if you manage to figure out master your own emotions and like just put yourself out there without feeling the need to manage everyone else's opinion of you, then I think you'll go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. um and this is the the last question, but we can go back and discuss some other things if you would like. How can people get a hold of you if they are interested in what you do?
So I'm on Twitter too. I just started this user. One sec. I think it's okay. Is there any way you can leave the username in the description or something? I think it's
Yeah.
Rishi D64. You
Hmm.
can reach me on Twitter, but if you're on Weequal group, just message me on Slack. That's probably the easiest way. I'm checking it quite often. So yeah, those are the two best ways to reach me right now.
Awesome. Yeah, and I can leave any links that you want in the description when we post this.
Perfect.
Um, yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to cover, or?
I think that's it. I gave you everything.
Yeah. Well,
Is there
thank you.
anything you want to ask me? Maybe I can come up with something to say.
Well, I think we can. It would also, if you want to go on, come on Weekly Live one time. We also, if there's any, we have a bunch of demo days for Weekly School, and if there's an area of expertise that you have, we would love to have you as a guest speaker. But yeah, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah, and happy birthday.
Thank you so much. Nice meeting you, Sue.
Bye.
Bye.